Hello everyone and welcome to the next lecture where I'll be talking about arbitrary output variables. They are short for AOV and they are quite common in the industry and used quite often in look dev and also in lighting. So what we want to do now is we just want to create a few basic AOVs and I can explain you what they are exactly. So in the render settings, let's just create a AOV. So an AOVs, let's just explain what it is quickly. It's an output variable, and an image is made up, or the renderer is actually made up of different ray types. An array is something which is emitted from the light source or from the camera. It hits the surface and goes back into the camera. And you have a ray for diffuse, you have a ray for specular, you have a ray for indirects, for transmissive objects and all that. And all of these output variables can be collected in a different kind of image stream. And an image like this is a combined image of all these rays added together. So let's just create an Arnold, I think it's called Arnold output channel define. And let's just create that and see what we get. So in the parameters, we have a name, we have a layer name, a driver, very complicated things, but all we care is this name. So let's just start by creating a diffuse, right? So, and all we got to do now is put in a light path expression, and you can see if you click the question mark, it opens, there's a link to a documentation. So let's click that and see what we get. So this is bringing us to the Arnold website, which has lots of different AOVs, right? You can see there's also documentation how to create them, and you can see what they are. So we were wanting to create diffuse. So diffuse is here. So this is the expression for diffuse, and I can just copy that, Control C, and I'll just paste this in LPE and the light path expression. So this is kind of all there is to do for the Arnold output channel define node, and you would expect it to see it directly. So if I render, you would expect it to show up here, right? Right now this will not happen, unfortunately. Let's just move render settings below all this, actually, like this. And in here you have the option to add your interactive outputs. Right now nothing is here. So what we need to do is we need to actually create so now we actually need to create a render output, or just an output node. Let's render output define node and just plug this down below this. So before we continue, we would need to create a in the channel, we would just need to add a name for this, and we just call it diffuse as well. So we have diffuse as a name and diffuse as the channel. So in the render output define node, we should be able to choose it now, or maybe not. Why is that? So let's see if we need to do a few more things. So the output name, if it's not here, we just type it in. Let's just type in diffuse, and the channel should have our diffuse channel, which we created on top. And then you can actually specify a file location, and a good habit is actually to use your project directory. So you can type in as an expression, you can, first of all, you can browse to a location. You can go up here and say output. Let's just do a new folder, call this render output, and we just call it image or whatever. So now we would be rendering this to image. And as it will get your extension and all that you need to do. So, but you can make it better and nicer. So let's create an expression. And instead of having all this, let's just type in project there and see what we get. Project.dir. And this will, if you hit Control Enter, this is actually auto-completing. And it goes all the way up to scenes automatically, which is amazing. And now you can do, you can just add plus. You add a / in a string format, and you do maybe, let's see what is in scenes. We can do outputs or whatever. And then AOV. And then you can specify an output name, and which is actually our diffuse on from the top. So we can just do plus output name like that, control enter, and let's see where we go now. So it creates these subfolders and up till diffuse, and then we want to append a new string and say percentage 04i means 4 zeros and an integer .exr. So this is now taking into consideration the frame number. So we can do percentage frame, hit control and enter, and now you can see it's adding 001.exr, which is our frame number. So you can also just add another dot before, and then we get diffuse dot frame number, which is perfect. All we gotta do is make sure that we have this location. So let's go to browse and see if we actually have, if we go to scenes, we don't have these two folders. So let's go in here and create outputs and another folder and hit AOV and enter. So now we have all these locations created, and this is now perfect. So we have our render output defined. Let's go to render settings and see if we have it. So diffuse is appearing. So let's just render and see if we now have our diffuse AOV in here. And if I click diffuse, we definitely see it right here. Right now we don't have our primary because I unclicked it, but you can just click all and you get all AOVs, control and backslash, and we should see now all of them appearing, including the primary, which is our main beauty pass. Let's see, render, there we go, that's the primary. Let's switch to diffuse, and this is our diffuse contribution. So this is kind of how you create an AOV, right? And you can go to the settings and look at all these guys. Like if you want to have a specular one, you can go to copy this path, select these nodes, edit and duplicate like that. Connect these guys up, change the expression down here. So that's now a specular. We can call this specula and paste that name in the channel and go to the output define, rename this guy and that guy. And now we should have this automatically to specular, just because we have it set as a output name, which grabs it from the top there. And now we have actually two AOVs. And if I hit render again, we should now have the specular appearing here as well. So this is kind of how you create an AOV. Let's see how the specular looks. It looks like that. Very cool, very isolated. And this is exactly what we want, right? So in a more advanced lecture, we will be creating a macro which has all of these guys connected in, and they are just a bit more easy to maintain. And I will go over all of this in more detail in a later later lecture. So for now, this sums up the creation of an arbitrary output variable. And obviously you can make this nicer. You can do AOV and call this diffuse and just clean up your scene. And a good lecture or a good training exercise for you would be, maybe you can come up with a nice macro yourself already and just see what I'll be producing in a later lecture. Or you can just create all these ones by hand like that. So it's all up to you. And yeah, if you have any questions about this workflow, please let me know. Happy to help, and I will see you in the next lecture.